Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your support for viewing my delegation. Before we get started, I would just like to let you know that I have replaced the audio on this delegation with my own audio. Waterloo District School Board has a reputation of garbling the audio or having interesting technical difficulties, and tonight was no exception, as parts of the audio went missing when I was cut off. I also wanted to let you know, as you listen to the delegation, whenever I say the word leadership, I'm referring to the director of the Waterloo District School Board. As always, I'm going to be releasing more details regarding this delegation and where I got my information from. If this interests you, I highly recommend that you subscribe and you keep in touch. I'm going to let you know exactly how the Waterloo District School Board is working with government-funded organizations to celebrate and facilitate child sterilization and mutilation before they even have a chance to start the family. I've also included a question period right after my delegation. I gotta admit I was a little bit flustered, but in this information follow-up video, I'm going to go through the questions as well and let you know my thoughts. Hope you enjoy.
Whenever you're ready.
Hello everybody, it's great to be back again. It's been a while since I've seen you last. Just wanted to start off with a quote from the open letter. Our goal has never been to censor or misinform students, parents, caregivers, families, or community members. And I really hope this is true because I continue to notice social media posts and videos with censored, limited, hidden, and closed comments. YouTube meeting video history is still removed, not yet up. Elected trustees block people on social media from accessing posts and commenting. Elected trustees. The meeting on January 13th summarizes a constant theme of not including parents, students, or addressing their concerns. I'm talking about the closure of the integrated support program without consultation. No student feedback or consultation done for French immersion program. The Roberts Rule delegation about board members voting without proof. Trustees instructing a delegate to take appropriate measures regarding library book concerns and speak to the school's principal. I've done all of this. I've spoken to the school principal. I've spoken to the librarian, and they all say they cannot do it. And this is the problem. Always getting pushed in different directions, always getting go here, never finding a solution. What responsibility is this board willing to take, and why are you censoring concerns? I have itemized my concerns as a parent in an email, and you have still not replied or even disclosed who is behind the open letter. The surveys have not been publicly released, and these surveys show that children disclosing their sexual orientation were age 4 and up, not grade 4 and up, like we were told. You intimidate parents on concerns by labeling opposing discussion as hate speech. January 23rd, leadership said, "We all issued the letter. Can staff involved please stand?" While leadership remained seated. So who is interested and who's accountable for this? Who is interested in knowing the sexual orientation and gender identity of my daughters? June 15, 20th, 27, 2022. Social media posts applicable to all kids in the Waterloo District School Board, including my daughters, celebrating community members publicly disclosing their sexuality. Their sexuality or my daughter's sexuality is nobody's business. Our staff, special guests, or community organizations invited in the school to have a discussion with my daughters about their sexual orientation. Waterloo District School Board Policy AP 1235, page 4, I've mentioned it before. A school should never disclose a student's gender status to the student's parents without the student's explicit prior consent. January 30th, leadership said, "I have shared information talking about the high rates of depression and suicide among some community groups." If this is the case, and suicide is elevated for these groups, why does the school implement policies that keep parents out of the equation? Regarding age appropriateness, you keep doubling down on this. Here's a book that I did not see on the Trillium approved book list by the government. However, this book has been approved by your robust CREW method system and deemed acceptable for students. You asked me to trust your process. So how many people approved this book and deemed it age appropriate? Now, because you keep voting down to look into this, I'm going to read this book because you deemed it appropriate. Nobody did it. You did it. This kind of material, this is the kind of material that my daughters are going to be exposed to when she gets a little bit older. The book is called Identical, and this is a scene between a dad and his 7-year-old daughter named Kaylee. He lifted her gently, sat her down on the bed beside him. Then he opened the snaps on the fly of his flannel pajamas. It stood up, stiff as stalagmite. How much does Daddy love you? Show me you love me too, touch it. He closed her hand around it. That's right, that's right. His voice rocked in rhythm with his body. I don't know what it meant, only that it made Daddy happy, and I wanted to make him happy. When Daddy finished, he brought his face to Kaylee's hair and wept. Kaylee was confused at his tears and sticky stuff icing her hands. Didn't I love you good enough, Daddy? Oh, little girl, don't you know how beautiful you are? No one is as lovely as you, not even your mother. She tried to sit up, but Daddy pushed her gently back down against the mattress. Just stay like that for Daddy. I want to teach you something new. He lifted her nightgown, rolled it over her belly, coaxed her thoroughbred legs apart. She squirmed a poultry protest. Don't move. This won't hurt. You'll like it, I promise. He kissed the length of her torso down to her small naked V. Daddy taught her something new, something awful, worse, something wonderful.
For a moment, point of order. Trustee Woodcock, there is a point of order across the gallery to be quiet. Pressing a point of order. If you cannot be quiet, I will ask you to leave. Trustee Woodcock, your point of order.
Point of order.
Trustee Woodcock. Thank you. Trustee Woodcock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My point of order is I'm concerned that the reading, I appreciate the reading of this, if that's what the delegation wants to do. However, I'm concerned that it is against our human rights policy and under the causing harm to some of our students, people watching, and frankly, that's my point of order against the human rights, our human rights policy.
Okay.
If I suggest that if he has more of his delegation that other than reading from this book, I'd be happy to hear it.
What is the name of this book? What is the name of the book? Identical. Thank you. Okay. How much? Okay.
Point of information.
This is a question. Just a minute, Trustee Wasim, or sorry, I think it was Trustee Sorer. Sorry, one moment. This is a quote from a book, Identical. How much longer is in this quote? Okay, I'm going to let you finish your quote, but I do need to deal with another point of order, and I have a point of information. So if you can pause for a moment. Trustee Watson, you have a point of order?
I can wait.
So you don't have a point of order? No? Okay, thank you. Trustee Sorer, you have a point of information?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if the delegate could confirm the author of Identical.
We'll ask that in the point in the clarification questions, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. That's okay, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna let you wrap up, and can you just hold a second? Okay. Okay, go ahead.
I'll continue with the quote. Something every little girl should know the joy of, though she shouldn't learn it from her daddy. Kaylee was used to Daddy's visits, but that night was something different. There was nothing gentle about it as he threw her back on the bed. Please, Daddy, no. When Daddy was done, she cried. On January 17, 2022, a delegation was shut down on book age appropriateness. These books are still available in kindergarten to grade 6. One book with themes of sexual discussions among minors, and the other involves trivializing medical procedures. Later that year, April 13th, leadership is seen on social media posts surrounded by these very books. January 30th, leadership said regarding all books, sexual orientation and gender identity themed, and I quote, are age appropriate regardless of what age students are. Why are books available in the school system with themes of pedophilia, incest, rape, molestation, controversial graphics, racial and suicidal subjects, hate, drug and alcohol abuse, sexual nudity, and obscene sexual activity? Why are my daughters constantly encouraged to discuss or disclose their sexuality, orientation, or gender identity among fellow students or staff? Why are staff or community members discussing or disclosing their sexuality or gender identity to my daughters? Why do third-party visitors, educators, speakers, or organizations in the school encourage a discussion with my daughters or in the presence of my daughters to disclose their sexual orientation or gender identity? Why is the education material or reading material distributed and made available to my daughters that encourages discussion or disclosure of sexual orientation or gender identity? It is nobody's business. Why does the board and leadership have policies, procedures, guidelines, materials, practices in place with punishments to silence opposing concerns regarding the constant child sexuality focused, and even working together with government-funded organizations to go as far as celebrate and facilitate medical mutilation and sterilization of children before they have a chance to start a family? When will the school shift the focus from sexuality and political nonsense to teaching academics? And once again, I ask, why is the board continuing to openly facilitate child abuse? Thank you.
And once again, if you're aware of child abuse, please report it to the police and Family and Children's Services. Thank you. All right, student trustee Sora, would you like to ask your question of clarification?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to the delegate, I would just like to ask if you could give the name of the author for identical.
I think it's something Hopkins.
Okay.
If you search it in the library, just type in identical.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and my understanding is Hopkins writes on youth sexual health.
I have no idea.
Oh.
She writes a lot of.
And thank you. Okay, I have trustee Wasim and then trustee Watson.
Yes, through you, Chair. Thank you, Delegate, for your remarks. Perhaps you answered this when you were responding to Chair Weston earlier, but I was going to ask, what is the context of this passage, the book that you're quoting from? I believe it's important for us to understand the context when authors use certain plot devices or elements that they describe in their literature.
Mr. Todor?
Well, as you can see, some trustees don't find these kind of books appropriate to be read over here. So I'm wondering why these books are available to the students.
That wasn't the question of clarification.
The question of clarification is because I see these books and I'm wondering what kind of processes are in place that allow these kind of books.
The question was the context in the book. That the passage you have read.
The passage is, do you find this acceptable?
No, within the book. Could you provide some context how it is used within the book? That was trustee Wasim. Is that your question of clarification? Thank you.
Yes, that is my question.
So what she's asking is you've pulled a quote.
Yes.
Could you provide the context of that quote in the larger book? That is trustee Wasim's question.
It's inappropriate. Like, what do you not understand? Is the books?
So
Any book.
No, we're not asking about appropriate. She's asking, you've pulled a question out of a book and she's asking the context within the book.
I think I've answered it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Watson, you have a point of order?
Thank you. No, I'll go on to my question.
Okay.
So within that book, was there an age level category for a book like that? Did it mention what grade that they were gearing towards?
So these books are only physical copies at the moment in high schools. So there's no e-copies, but books like these is the overall theme that I'm wondering how these books get through the system. That's what I'm wondering.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to forward this delegation's questions to staff, and that they would respond directly to the delegation and that he would get the answers to his questions. I think the questions are valid and he deserves to have the answers.
Okay,
So I make a motion that we would forward these questions and staff can respond.
okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Trustee Ramsey? Okay, does anybody have any questions on that?
I'd like a
Motion?
recorded vote.
Okay. Trustee Woodcock, you have a question?
How much work will this involve with, the open letter was a response to the delegation's previous questions, which are the same as what he's asking today.
Okay.
So I don't know why I'll be voting against the motion because we've already responded to his question.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Radlin, this is on the motion to refer to staff. You would like to comment on that? Okay, thank you. Okay, I will add you to my list for that.
I have a question of clarification on the motion.
Okay, Trustee Wasim.
Just to confirm, did the trustee propose that the specific concern we're forwarding is how these books are selected?
I believe it was all questions raised. There was a number of questions. I will, thank you. There's a number of questions in the delegation. And so it would be all of those questions. Is that correct, Trustee Watson? Thank you. Okay. Trustee Ramsey, did you have a comment or I saw your hand go up and down?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Are we speaking to the motion then?
The motion to refer to staff.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going to speak briefly to it. To encourage trustees to support this motion. I'm really pleased to see how yourself handled the objection from one of my colleagues with regard to the delegation continuing with his presentation. And I do believe it's that level of maturity that we need to exercise and to hear all voices, because I really do think that every parent, all parents should know what's going on in their children's lives and have a role in it. We heard earlier delegations speaking on one side of an issue and appeared to have been like well received. I think we listened respectfully. So I think I don't think the foundations are going to shift if we as a board were to approve my colleague's motion to have this referred to staff and to have the parents' questions answered. Up to this point, I've not heard anything to suggest that the book that the delegation, the text that he shared with the board, that this particular book is not in our libraries. So unless I'm mistaken, if the book is in fact in our libraries, then there is an answer. And I think there's got to be some balance that would give an answer without impacting or encroaching on the rights of our LGBTQ friends and neighbors. We've got to find a way out of this impasse, Madam Chair. And it can't be just someone raising an objection and pointing to human rights, violation of human rights without being specific, because up to this point, I don't even know what section of the Human Rights Code is being played here to prevent
Kind of going off on a tangent here.
I'm sorry?
I said you're kind of going off on a tangent to your.
No, I'm just mentioning, Madam Chair, like there was objection raised.
Okay.
And we still around violation of human rights code, and it's very easy to throw those things out and to use that as an excuse not to move forward and to answer legitimate questions that are being raised in the community. So I would really hope that the majority of all my colleagues will model the same behavior that you just modeled in allowing the delegate to continue with his presentation. See, the foundation, the building didn't collapse just by him sharing what he shared. So thank you.
Thank you. And I will just clarify that the delegate did clarify that this book is available in print in secondary schools. So that was clarified by the delegate. Okay, I have speaking to the motion to refer to staff. I just want to make sure. Trustee Watson, you're speaking to the motion to refer to staff?
At the end, if anybody else.
Okay, does any Trustee Wasim, your hand is up. I'm not sure if that's from previous or this one. I'm sorry.
Just speaking to the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
I will vote in favor of this motion, but specifically because the delegate had a question about this book, and if they would like to learn more about it and how it was chosen, and they want to hear about it, the process again, then I think that's fair to hear response from our staff.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Trustee Watson, I don't see any other.
Thank you. I think it's important that we have a delegation process, and it's specifically for parents to come in to boardrooms under pressure and provide information. And instead of being mischaracterized, we should just listen to what they're saying. We should just listen and value their opinion like anyone else. They have something to add. That is why we call it public education. David is well within his right to get the answers to his questions. And the problem is, if we don't provide the answers, parents keep coming back because they're not getting the answers, and they deserve the answers. They give us the privilege of educating their children, and they want the answers that they're looking for. And until that happens, when we vote that we're not going to forward, we're basically telling the delegation, it doesn't really matter what you have to say.
Point of order.
We're not going to.
Trustee, don't stop. Trustee,
I would ask the fellow trustees to not mischaracterize the reasons that people may vote in favor or opposed to a motion. People will make their own decisions based on their own judgment.
And I agree with that, and I support the point of order. So please do not mischaracterize.
Because the mischaracterization has been happening for years around this table. And when delegations come in and try and think about what a person actually means, David is clearly asking for information around his children and what we're providing in our libraries. He deserves to get those answers. And so the judgment and the mischaracterization of any comment it's wrong, depending on which side you're on. And the polarization, I believe, will stop when we welcome parents into the boardroom and provide information that they're looking for. So I would request that we give this parent what he's looking for. He's asking for answers to his question.
You, Trustee Woodcock.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, just for clarification, I indicated I'll be voting against referring the delegation's remarks to staff because I believe that his questions have already been answered. So that's why I will be voting against referring it. Just to clarify.
Thank you.
So that people don't speak for me about my motivation.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further comments, this is a recorded vote, so I'll hand it over to Ms. Rydell.
Excuse me. Thank you. We will start with Trustee Cody.
I support Trustee Watson.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson.
No.
Trustee Meisner.
Opposed.
Trustee Piatkowski.
Opposed.
Trustee Radlin.
Opposed.
Trustee Ramsey.
In favor.
Trustee Snyder.
Opposed.
Trustee Wasim.
In favor.
Trustee Watson.
In favor.
Trustee Woodcock.
Opposed.
Student Trustee Reyna.
Opposed.
Student Trustee Sorer.
Opposed.
Thank you. That is 4 in favor and 6 opposed. That motion is defeated.
Thank you, Ms. Rydell. Okay, we are back to questions of clarification. I Trustee Watson, you made the motion. Do you have a question of clarification or no?
No.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Meisner?
Just wondering, obviously, if your daughter brought this book home, you would be concerned with it. Did your daughter bring this book home?
Before I answer that question, I just want to make sure these mics are turned on because I've been told
The mic is on.
that they weren't on while I was reading.
No, the mic was on and our people that are tuning in virtually, all the trustees heard you.
Okay. The question, would I be concerned if my daughter brought this home?
No, no.
Sorry, through the chair, I can understand that you would be concerned if your daughter brought this home. My question of clarification is, did your daughter bring this book home?
She did not bring it home.
Okay,
Can I have a follow-up question?
follow up.
Through the chair. Then, did you read this book? Did you find it in the library? How did you find this passage that you read?
Yes,
Trustee-
actually,
Trustee
I did
Todor?
read this book and I did find it in the library. And the reason why I'm concerned is books like these are made available to students.
I hear that.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Rodman?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Just in terms of your presentation, I'm wondering what the connection is between, so you read an excerpt from a book that really concerns you. And what's the connection between that and sexual orientation? Because you spoke about sexual orientation in your presentation as
Yes.
well.
Yes,
So is there a connection between the book and that, or yes, I didn't understand.
I
Mr.
brought
Todor?
one of many points of concern. One was sexual orientation and the other one was addressing book appropriateness.
Follow up, Trustee
Okay.
Rodman?
Yes, and so then you're asking that we ban certain books.
I'm asking, what process are you using to make these books available to children who clearly some trustees don't even like being heard over here? That's what I'm asking. I'm not saying the book should be banned. I'm saying, why don't you tell me what category this book fits in? Is this education or is this entertainment? I have no idea how these books are appropriate.
Thank you. Trustee Johnson?
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Just about this book, you said you read the entire book?
Mr.
Did I
Todor?
read the entire
Yeah,
book?
did you read the entire book?
No, I read a lot of things and I can't always read the entirety of all the books.
Okay, follow up, Trustee Johnson?
Yes, are you aware that this book was written specifically to expose the reality of child abuse and sexual abuse, and written specifically to help guide people through recognizing it and recognizing the experience? And it's specifically, and there's a lot of feedback about this book, has been that people have really appreciated it, that it's shed a light on a very, very difficult and challenging topic. So this book has actually been written to expose abuse, sexual abuse. That's actually the heart of this book. Are you aware of that?
Mr. Todor?
So let me ask you something. When you try to justify
No,
kinds of passages,
can you answer the question, please? The
I
question of
am. I'm
clarification?
trying to answer it. When you write a book like this and you try to expose it, there's a way to talk about things, okay? Because when you just put it in there just to make people aware and it's like, this is how it goes. I mean, when students read this stuff,
You're not answering the question. Can you please answer the question? It was a question of clarification.
I don't believe the question is accurate. I don't believe that's what the book is.
Thank you. We'll move on. Trustee Wasim?
Yes, through you, Chair. Mr. Todor, earlier you said that you don't know the context in which this excerpt is in the book, but then you said you read the book. Can you just explain why you can't explain the context in which this excerpt came in the book?
Trustee Wasim, I'll just clarify. He said he did not read the book.
Oh, okay. And just a follow-up question then.
ahead.
Which library did you
Can I answer that?
You,
I said,
Did
he
I-
asked me if I read the entire book, and I said I did not read the entire book.
correct.
I asked,
I read parts of the book, so I know
able to
Okay.
present.
Trustee Wasim, can you repeat your question?
Yes, my specific question is, earlier you stated that you had read the book, but now I understand that you read only parts of the book. My question is, when I earlier asked what is the context of this excerpt, even if you read parts of the book, you have enough concern around it to bring it forward at this board meeting. Understandable. Why can you not explain the context in which this excerpt was used? If it was alarming, I'm sure it didn't just come up out of nowhere. So could you just explain?
Mr. Todor?
Yes, it was alarming. It's like watching a movie and an inappropriate scene comes up and you're...
But you said you read parts of the book, correct?
Mr. Wasim, just a minute.
That's right. This is not appropriate.
Okay.
My follow-up question is,
Follow-up, Trustee Wasim?
yes, thank you, Chair. Which library did you find this book?
I'll let you do the research on that. I'm speaking right now.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Ramsey?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure if this should be to Mr. Todor or to the staff, because I'm getting a little bit confused, and it's around the whole issue that where some of my colleagues appear to be taking the discussion. I believe Mr. Todor in his presentation was asking around gatekeeping in terms of the selection of supplementary material and what are the guidelines and around it and where they're used. And that's one of the main reasons I supported my colleague's motion, is to say, send it to staff so that we can get some answers to these questions. These questions are not being answered. Okay, and it's been taken down a road that around for Mr. Todor to explain.
Are you asking a question of clarification?
Well, I'm just asking him to clarify and to perhaps make it very clear, or make it more clear as to whether or not his concern is around the gatekeeping in terms of what policies, because I'm not clear on what the policies are in terms of how the board select supplementary material for use in our schools. And I think that's what he was here about. Am I off base? I'd love to know.
Okay,
Yes.
so that was his question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee, just making sure nobody else for the first, Trustee Watson.
Just to build on that, so clearly with your delegation, you're talking about age appropriateness and where are the policies and procedures on this? And I think that those are valid questions. Is there anything with that particular delegation, is there anything that you would like to highlight since you were not able to send
That's not a question of clarification. That's asking for more information, like asking him to add to his delegation. Is there something you'd like clarified?
Well, I guess it's more about, your question about age appropriateness.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So what would you like to see?
Thank you. Mr. Todor?
I would love to see something put in place that limit these kinds of books and these kinds of readings, because having passages like this so people can have lived experiences by reading abuse, maybe, oh, this is how it worked. I don't think it's wise to affirm people's abuse by having abusive behavior in books.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions. Thank you. Thank you for your delegation.